You are listening to The Vocal Technologist. Spoken tech for your ears.
Have you ever opened an app on your phone looking for that one single button you actually need and you're just greeted by this massive labyrinth of features you never asked for?
Oh, absolutely.
Or maybe you are the exact type of person who has so many browser tabs open that the icons have just disappeared into these microscopic slivers of pure anxiety.
Yeah, that is a very real phenomenon, the modern tragedy of the vanishing browser tab.
It really is a universal dread. You stare at the screen and think, look, I just wanted to do one simple task. Why do I need a masterclass in interface navigation just to achieve it?
We accumulate all these open loops because the tools we use are constantly demanding our attention. But so often they fail to actually finish the job for us without making us jump through a dozen hoops first.
Exactly. We build all these miraculous tools to make our lives easier, and somehow we just end up drowning in digital clutter. But that is exactly what we are going to unpack. We are exploring how artificial intelligence is radically reshaping software business models and looking at the essential skills for product management.
And we are also getting into some brilliant strategies for better organizational alignment.
Spot on. So if you are ready to get into it, you are in the right place for another Product Thursdays edition of Vocal Technologist.
I am very keen to get into this one. There is a massive shift happening right under the surface of the tech industry.
It touches absolutely everything from how we price the products we build to how you actually navigate your career path. So I want to start with a term I keep hearing, which is the SaaSpocalypse.
Right, the SaaSpocalypse.
It sounds like a terrifying blockbuster movie, but what exactly does it mean for people building software?
Look, it is a dramatic term, but it perfectly captures the sudden death of the traditional software subscription model.
Because for years, the standard playbook was incredibly simple.
Exactly. You build a software platform, you charge your clients a monthly fee per seat or per user, and you sit back and watch the recurring revenue roll in. You are basically renting out digital space.
But artificial intelligence is driving massive cost compression across the board.
It has become so incredibly cheap and fast to write code and spin up competing tools.
So it is fundamentally breaking that seat-based pricing model.
Spot on. We are seeing a real sell-off in the market because traditional point solution modes are just eroding away. When it is this cheap to replicate a feature, simply having a functional tool is no longer a competitive advantage at all.
Okay, but let me play devil advocate for a second. Companies absolutely love recurring revenue, and investors love predictable monthly income.
They do.
Are you telling me that companies are just going to willingly give up that model? Is it really that simple?
Well, they are not giving it up willingly. They are being forced to adapt. We are transitioning toward what we can call honest software.
Honest software. I reckon that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, because customers are completely exhausted by paying $50 a month for a login they barely use. They expect to pay for real results rather than just paying for empty seats or basic access. Value is what sets a product apart, not mere function.
So we are moving into an era of outcome-based pricing. You do not pay for the software itself. You pay for the specific measurable problem it solves for you.
That is exactly it.
That makes total sense. If I am paying for a sales tool, I do not want to pay for a dashboard. I want to pay for the leads it actually converts.
Precisely.
But surely the subscription model will not disappear entirely, right? Where do subscriptions actually survive the SaaSpocalypse?
There are really only two places the subscription model will remain durable. The first is essential utilities.
Things you literally cannot run your business without.
Exactly like your core data infrastructure or your cloud hosting. And the second area is continuously fresh context. Think of a live financial feed or real-time market intelligence.
Right. You subscribe because the data is constantly updating and providing new value every single second.
Spot on. But everywhere else, intense income pressure and absolute context exhaustion are breaking the model completely.
Think about your own workflows for a minute. How many tools do you use where the value is just static? Those are the ones on the chopping block. Definitely.
And a great example of a company navigating this shift is Zillow. Everyone knows Zillow. It's that property listings app where you go to look at houses you cannot afford.
Yeah, the ultimate window shopping app.
Exactly. But their future is completely different, right?
Very different. The chief executive officer of Zillow recognizes that a static list of houses is no longer enough of a value proposition. They are transforming into transaction software.
They want to own the workflow systems that actually make buying and selling easier.
Spot on. They are integrating the execution across real estate agents and financing. So instead of just being a passive directory where you search for a house, they become an active participant in the final outcome.
which is you getting the keys to the property.
Exactly.
So what does this all mean for classic enterprise software assumptions? Historically, enterprise tools built huge competitive moats by just being incredibly complicated.
Yeah, once a company learned a clunky piece of enterprise software, they never wanted to switch because retraining staff was too painful.
Right. So how do companies compete now? Well, that entire concept of a competitive moat is shifting beneath our feet. The new winners in this space will be the ones who design for agents, governance, and deep organizational intelligence.
Because when artificial intelligence agents can navigate those complex, clunky interfaces for you, that old user interface moat completely vanishes.
Exactly. The new advantage is context. The software that understands your specific organizational behavior, your data, and your unwritten rules better than anyone else is the software that ultimately wins.
Speaking of which, as the business models shift, the way we actually build these products is changing just as fast.
It really is.
With artificial intelligence tools becoming standard table stakes, simply knowing how to use more tools will not make a product person stand out anymore. If artificial intelligence can write the code and ship the standard features, what is the actual role of the human driving the product?
The answer is product sense. It is arguably the only skill that matters moving forward.
And product sense is the ultimate differentiator because it requires making better calls than a machine can make on its own.
Spot on. It involves deep empathy for the user, foresight into market shifts, strategic thinking, and highly creative execution.
Right, because an artificial intelligence can give you 50 different ways to build a new feature.
Yeah, but product sense is knowing which of those 50 ways actually resonates with a human being. It is about having a refined taste in trade-offs.
I absolutely love that phrase, taste and trade-offs. It perfectly aligns with this new trend of product managers vibing code. I have heard this term floating around, but break it down for us. What does it actually mean to vibe code?
Vibing code is this brilliant concept where product managers who might not be classically trained software engineers can use artificial intelligence to spin up functional applications.
Just by describing what they want and iterating on the output?
Exactly. They do not need to be veteran developers deploying high-risk infrastructure. Instead, they can build internal tools and user-facing experiences where speed, taste, and usability matter most. They are guiding the machine with their product sense.
And speed is the absolute priority here. Even a massive established product like Google Chrome is speeding up its release schedule to a 2-week cycle just to keep up with intense new competition.
It is a massive acceleration.
And as we build faster, the things we build are evolving. We are starting to see production artificial intelligence agents functioning as data products in their own right. They are no longer just neat little features tucked away in a settings menu.
Spot on. An agent now has its own users, its own strict quality requirements, and a roadmap driven by real usage signals. You have to manage an artificial intelligence agent the exact same way you would manage a standalone application.
It is a living, breathing product that requires maintenance and strategic direction.
Exactly.
And managing those agents gets pretty wild. I was reading about this quirky but incredibly effective tactic where development teams are actually hiring a middle manager agent to coordinate their coding agents.
Yeah, it is a fascinating approach.
Imagine that. Instead of a human trying to wrangle 5 different artificial intelligence tools writing code simultaneously, you deploy a manager agent to delegate the tasks and organize the output. It drastically reduces the multitasking overhead for the human team.
It is a brilliant strategy for accelerating development, but I would argue it comes with a massive trade-off.
Right.
When you hand coordination over to a middle manager agent, you are giving up direct control over the code quality. You are essentially trusting the system to police itself.
Wait, so we let a machine manage other machines? It sounds like a disaster waiting to happen. Does it not just compound the errors?
It absolutely can, which is why it requires a massive leap of faith and really strong governance framework.
You have to build incredibly robust testing environments to ensure the final output actually meets your rigorous standards. You cannot just walk away and hope for the best.
Exactly.
Trusting an automated middle manager requires a leap of faith, but honestly, trusting human teams requires great governance too. Let us shift gears and talk about internal team dynamics. There's a concept called force mapping, which sounds like a fantastic tool for fixing deep-rooted organizational problems. Can you walk us through how that works?
Yeah, force mapping is brilliant because so often organizations mistake symptoms for real problems. Think about a scenario where a sales team keeps missing their quotas.
Management might look at that symptom and assume the team is lazy or unmotivated.
Exactly. But force mapping forces you to dig deeper. It reveals the underlying forces, behaviors, and beliefs driving those symptoms. Maybe you discover that the customer relationship management software is so tedious to use that salespeople are spending half their day doing administrative data entry instead of actually selling.
So it helps teams run better experiments because they are finally treating the root cause rather than just applying a bandage to the symptom.
Spot on.
I imagine this ties directly into how companies try to fix those systemic issues. When a company realizes their processes are broken, their first instinct is usually to standardize absolutely everything.
Oh, yeah.
They roll out massive, heavy frameworks that require 10 layers of approval for a simple decision.
That is the exact trap companies fall into. And that brings us to a vital concept called minimally viable consistency.
Minimally viable consistency.
When you implement a new process, you should standardize only what truly reduces coordination cost while actively preserving local flexibility.
You have to be incredibly cautious during strategy shifts and avoid those false standard frameworks that look fantastic on a boardroom presentation, but slow everyone down in reality.
Spot on.
It reminds me of the analogy that consistency should be treated as temporary scaffolding.
Yeah.
You put it up to support the structure while it is being built or while a team is learning a new way of working.
Exactly. But that scaffolding naturally expires once the teams can operate independently.
Yeah.
You do not want your people living permanently inside the scaffolding.
That is a perfect way to visualize it, and this principle applies perfectly to how companies design their broader goals.
It does. There are 6 fundamental rules to create clarity rather than complexity when setting company goals. First, focus on a few core metrics. Second, choose one single priority.
Just one priority.
Yes, just one. Third, assign clear ownership. Fourth, review progress regularly so the company learns what actually drives results.
What are the last two?
The 5th rule is to make the goals highly visible. And the 6th rule, which is arguably the most crucial, is you must explicitly declare what you will not do.
Deciding what to completely ignore is just as important as deciding what to pursue.
Exactly.
But declaring what you will not do is incredibly hard for ambitious teams. They want to be everything to everyone. Which brings us to the ultimate cautionary tale of what happens when you do not follow those rules. Think about the Facebook app.
All right.
When you open it, you see a dating service, a marketplace, short videos, local groups, memories, and gaming. It is completely overwhelming.
It is a lot.
But why does that happen? Because great design requires love, courage, and immense consistency. Designers thrive by treating feedback as a continuous dialogue. But the Facebook app clutter is a direct byproduct of metric incentives, not design neglect.
Precisely. They have some of the most brilliant designers in the world. But when every single product team inside the company is incentivized to push their own specific metric at all costs, the end result is a chaotic user interface.
The video team wants you to watch videos, the marketplace team wants you to buy things, and they are all fighting for the exact same pixels on your screen.
Yeah, when the metric becomes the overarching goal itself, the user experience is always the very first casualty.
That reminds me of how individual contributors can get trapped by the wrong incentives too. But before we talk about that, how do we actually get stakeholders on board with all these shifts? We have talked about outcome-based pricing and ditching massive frameworks.
Right.
But if you are a product manager, you still have to convince your boss or your board that this is the right path.
Stakeholder management is where so many brilliant product strategies go to die. Yeah. Product teams usually lose these battles when they just walk into a room and try to sell their final conclusions. You cannot just hand a stakeholder a finished plan and expect them to champion it. Instead, you have to show the discovery journey.
What does that journey actually look like in practice?
It involves 4 key steps. You start with the outcome, which is the business goal you're trying to achieve. Then you present the opportunity, which is the specific user problem you uncovered. Next, you introduce the solution you are proposing. And finally, you lay out the evidence that proves why this solution will work.
When you bring stakeholders along on that entire journey, it turns them into collaborators rather than critics.
Spot on. It builds incredibly strong buy-in because they understand the logic behind every single trade-off you made.
Think about your own job for a second. If you are listening right now, are you the high performer who stays quiet and just gets the work done?
It's a common situation.
You might think you are being the ultimate team player, but you might actually be falling into a massive career trap.
This is a huge issue for talented individuals. High performers often unintentionally stall their careers by falling into very specific, behavioral patterns.
Like what?
Well, they become overly helpful to their coworkers. They stay completely quiet during crucial strategy meetings, and they pride themselves on being incredibly low maintenance.
But wait, managers love low-maintenance employees. They love people who just put their head down and deliver without complaining. Why is that a trap?
Because being low maintenance makes your most valuable work completely invisible to leadership.
Ah, I see.
If you never raise your hand to highlight the complexity of what you just achieved, leadership assumes work was simple. If you want to grow in your career, you must prioritize visible impact.
You have to actively communicate the complex problems you solve.
Exactly. You need to engage your manager with strong opinions and bold ambition so your scope actually expands, rather than just staying hidden in the background as a reliable workhorse.
You have to make sure your value is undeniably understood. And speaking of making value understood, there is this brilliant concept in product development that every product starts in Oklahoma. What does an American state have to do with scaling a tech platform?
It is a great metaphor for understanding market penetration. The idea is that early products succeed by attracting curious early adopters. These are the enthusiasts who are more than happy to try unfinished ideas.
They love the raw, unpolished potential of a brand new tool, and they will forgive a clunky interface if the core technology is cool.
Exactly. We call this the Oklahoma phase, the testing ground. But scaling your product requires a massive shift in mindset.
Because what works for the early adopters will not work for the mainstream market. Mainstream users are highly skeptical.
Spot on. They do not care about your potential or your cool technology. They care about what you can do for them right now. To reach them, you have to provide a crystal clear return on investment.
Exactly. And there's a direct parallel here with the music industry. Look at the concept of the death of Spotify. Streaming has completely commoditized music.
It has. It limits the leverage an artist has, and it heavily rewards massive scale over actual listener loyalty.
I see this all the time. You might put on a playlist of chill instrumental beats while you work. An artist on that playlist might get millions of streams, but you, as the listener, have absolutely no idea who the artist actually is. You have zero connection to them.
Spot on. The future of the music industry belongs to those who own their audience and who monetize deep, direct fan relationships.
Because if you rely entirely on an algorithmic playlist to distribute your work, you are completely at the mercy of the platform. You need your fans to care about you specifically.
Absolutely.
So how does music streaming connect back to building software products?
It is the exact same dynamic at play. In an environment where artificial intelligence makes it easier than ever to build competing software, your product features are entirely commoditized. Someone can clone your core functionality in a weekend.
Right. So software retention now depends on integrated risk monitoring and real human signals, not just pushing out better product releases every 2 weeks.
You have to own your audience. You have to build a relationship based on deep context and absolute trust, just like a musician building a core dedicated fan base.
Let us pull all these threads together. We have journeyed through the SaaSpocalypse and the rapid rise of outcome-based pricing. We explored why product sense and a refined taste in trade-offs are essential when artificial intelligence can instantly write our code.
And we looked at the deep dangers of metric-driven design clutter, how to bring stakeholders along on the discovery journey, and the traps high performers fall into when they forget to make their impact highly visible.
And the common thread weaving through all of it is the fundamental shift from simple function to undeniable value. Whether you are an enterprise software company trying to justify your pricing to a skeptical market, or a product manager trying to aggressively advance your career simply doing the work, is no longer the differentiator.
Exactly. It is about the specific measurable value you create for the end user or the broader organization.
Which leaves us with a pretty massive thought to chew on. If artificial intelligence handles all the complex coding and the tedious coordination, and if outcome-based pricing makes traditional software subscriptions completely obsolete, will human intuition and genuine empathy be the only premium features left in the tech industry?
That is the central question for the next era of product development. Empathy and deep contextual understanding might just be the ultimate competitive moats we have left.
I completely agree. Well, thank you for joining us for this exploration. If you enjoyed unpacking these ideas with us, make sure to subscribe. Keep questioning your assumptions, keep looking for the underlying forces shaping your work, and most importantly, stay curious. Catch you on the next one.
Spoken Tech for your ears.